obviously fear is a reasonable reaction to the concept of life without a paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about that, we work with retirees here at GenWealth every day as they are walking up to that and making that decision. And we can see that when they first come in. Maybe not fear always, but certainly troubled, concerned. Yes. How are they going to do it?
The real concern is the unknown. The process of accumulating your assets and working, that's known. That's something you're comfortable with, that you've had some practice at, and hopefully some success with as well. But the whole dynamic changes when you're ready to retire, and there are a lot of factors that can be blind spots for people. Mm-hmm. And I think they're aware that they exist, but they're not sure what they are.
Right.
So it just feels overwhelming.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of rules around retirement when it comes to the accounts, Troy. I mean, taxes, penalties, RMDs, all those things come into play.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration when you're going to retire, and obviously it's something new. It's something you've never done before, and that in itself is a fear for a lot of people, just doing something that you've never done before.
Right. It is really more that side of it, I think, than the dollars and cents even. It's the reality of I'm not going to work anymore. How am I going to spend my time? I mean, there's so many things. We don't have to list them, and that's not what this show is about. What are the fears? We do want to take 3 scary questions every retiree faces and kind of present those to you in a different way, because I think the jumping off point for us today should really be, it's a lot about mindset, right? The mindset you go into retirement with affects your emotional response to thinking about life without a paycheck. As Teresa mentioned, you may have been very good at accumulating wealth, right? I think if people, especially 2 spouses who have 2 good jobs with 2 employer plans that have matched their contribution dollars for decades, and they've put it into a growth investment, they've likely done quite well. They've reached the finish line, but it's the now what mentality of, I have X amount of dollars that I've saved. It's taken me a lifetime to do it. What does it really mean? So our first jumping off point, 3 scary questions, or 3 scary thoughts, maybe. They may not even be posed as questions. I'm afraid I'll lose my money.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big fear for retirees. When they walk up to retirement, they've accumulated, and now they don't want to see those balances go down.
And what this usually looks like is someone coming in the meeting room, and you may have walked in and you're thinking, you're getting close to retirement, I've got to safeguard my money. I think we hear that a lot. I've got to safeguard my money. I don't need risk. I'm walking into retirement. But there's more to that dynamic than just protection when you're entering retirement. You're not using every dollar day one. So you need a strategy that includes your lifetime in retirement, not just that first year.
Well, that's something that is pretty common for somebody to come in. And if you're listening to the show right now, you may be entering into retirement. And something that we see all the time is, a potential client comes into the office and they've moved all of their money, kind of what you're alluding to here, Teresa. They've moved all of their money into some ultra conservative investment. But when you said you're not going to use, all of your money on day one of retirement, what that means is there's a portion of that retirement savings that you're not going to use for, 15 plus years into retirement. So it doesn't make sense to take that part of your money and move it over to something that's going to have very little earning potential for the next 30 plus years of your life.
And another dynamic we see is using those kind of timed retirement funds that are an asset allocation, and usually they're called like a target retirement fund, and it's got a date attached to it. And one thing we see a lot of is people using those and using their actual retirement date as that target date. But what they don't realize is the bond exposure drastically increases as that gets closer to its deadline.
Yeah, and I think the mindset shift here that needs to take place is you can't think of retirement as a stop sign when it comes to your investments. That's the way I think retirees typically feel. Is you may feel this way too. If I've accumulated all this wealth and now it's time to put the brakes on, full stop, and not take on any more risk because I've got to preserve now. And the preservation part of that is correct, but how you do it matters, and you can't take on more risk by seemingly avoiding risk in the market instruments or the types of investments that you've made over your lifetime that would have generally put your principal at risk. So don't think of retirement from an investment perspective as a stop sign. Think of it more as a yield sign. And really, we've talked about this before. It's a red zone, the retirement red zone, going inside the 20-yard line in a football game. In between the 20s, you're a little more wide open. You've
Yeah.
got more space to operate. You can throw the long pass. When you're inside the 20-yard line, the play calling changes. So even more specifically, rather than just a stop sign versus a yield sign, it really is a complete change in dynamic of how your investment strategy should look. But to Teresa's point, it can't be all risk off the table.
Correct. And you may have been a great manager of your assets during your accumulation years. As Scott mentioned earlier, the process of accumulating is just about focus and staying on it. But as you're nearing retirement, do you want to trade your full-time job to be a full-time analyst?
Yeah.
You may be sitting there going, but I've accumulated these funds on my own. Why do I need someone to help me in retirement? Well, did you retire to sit and watch the stock market every day and worry about the ups and the downs?
Yeah.
Or would you like a strategy that helps you manage that over time?